Hello, and welcome to Archvelder's Hacks with Archvelder and his amazing hacks. In this video, I'll show you how to access some of the zones in hidden areas throughout the World of Warcraft. World zones hidden inside dungeons, raids hidden inside dungeons, even dungeons hidden inside dungeons like Matryoshka dolls. We'll explore the mystery of Rahendran, the lost gate of the Sunwell, discover an eternal battle taking place beneath Old Dalaran, break out of the Black Temple, and discover the flying fish farms of Old Hillsbrad. The first hidden area we'll discover is in the Escape from Durnholde dungeon. And we are literally going to escape from the Escape from Durnholde dungeon. Try saying that quickly after 2 shots of whiskey. Now, this started a couple of weeks back when a lady by the name of Miranda Gibbons contacted me, and Miranda wanted to find a way past the invisible walls in the Escape from Durnholde dungeon. I couldn't recall seeing a way to do this, and I was curious to see if I could find a way, so I went to have a look to see if I could figure it out. Now, if you head into the Caverns of Time to the north of Old Hillsbrad, you can see that the invisible walls block off a lot of the area from the players. Invisible walls are quite tough to crack, but explorers have found a number of ingenious ways to get around them. When I came to this area, between the gate and the river, I found a log running through the invisible wall. Now, this was quite a significant find, because when an object goes through an invisible wall like this, it means it is possible to heroic leap, use rogue grappling hook, or in my case with this demon hunter, use infernal strike. And this ingenious method was first discovered by the YouTuber Jacob Skipper. There are in fact 2 invisible walls, and you need to be standing on the log with your special ability to get past both of them. Now, this area in the north is enormous and comprises several actual world zones. There is so much to see here. One of my favourite reasons to come here is to mess around with the otherwise impossible race and class combinations it produces. This flying dwarf has all the aerodynamic panache of a half-brick. Old Hillsbrad contains the largest concentration I've ever seen of these surreal flying fish. This fortress, which I believe is a version of Fenris Isle, for some reason has the percussion-based music you sometimes hear in Battlegrounds, that I believe was originally made for the Warcraft 3 intro trailer. Much of the area is shrouded in fog, which reduces visibility to near zero. If you go to the area directly above the entrance portal to Escape from Durnholde, you can glitch into an instanced version of the Caverns of Time, as I'm demonstrating here. The channel actually changes to Terrace as you glitch through the wall. Overall, this is a strange and distorted version of the Eastern Kingdoms, full of secrets, some of which may yet to be uncovered. As I was making this video, the explorer Hazzy released a similar exploration of this area, which is essential viewing. He used a fantastic technique on his druid to bypass the invisible walls, which is worth checking out for that reason alone, and 16 minutes of exploration, which gives you an indication of how much there is to look at here. Finally, this is one of my favourite things here, this odd sliver of floating water, suspended with geometrical precision above the ground. Magister's Terrace contains a not so much hidden but unreachable zone, which I've been trying to access for years. You see, Magister's Terrace contains not just a 5-man dungeon, but an entire raid instance. And not just any raid instance, but Sunwell Plateau, the zenith of raiding in the Burning Crusade. Blizzard teased the raid in this section of the dungeon, but made it impossible to access until now. I finally worked out a Demon Hunter method developed from a video I saw from the speedrunner Chic Runner, which was originally designed to speedrun through the instance, but can be tweaked to escape from Magister's Terrace altogether. You can get onto this plant pot with Ventral Retreat, and you'll find you can then fly straight down into this weird version of Sunwell Plateau in front of us. None of the NPCs in this phantom instance will attack you or can themselves be attacked. It is as if you were in a ghost raid. If you go round this corner, you'll see something very unique, a weird glimpse into the past of Warcraft. This is Rehendor, the second gate of the Sunwell. Rehendor was originally one of 3 gates that prevented access to progress in the days when the Sunwell was still current content. Because this version of Sunwell Plateau was never meant to be accessed, it was never removed, as it was in the original instance. Also here is the penultimate raid boss, Maru, the corrupted Naru, though the final part of the raid instance is blocked off by Arcanisis, the third and final gate of the Sunwell. Old Dalaran has a secret all of its own. Preserved for all eternity beneath the underbelly is a lethal and ceaseless battle for supremacy. If you use a mage, a class trial mage will do if you don't have one, or a druid with Displacer Beast, and go into the underbelly and blink into this tunnel here, you'll glitch through the terrain. You can run through into mid-air, and then if you quickly flip around 180 degrees with a goblin glider, you can access the normally inaccessible area under the underbelly. Then, if you are patient, something very weird will happen. 2 randomly created characters from player races will appear and fight to the death in this replica of Dalaran Arena, in a simulation of actual player arena combat. Each duo will be designated as belonging to either a green or gold team. Now, if you're perceptive and you played during Wrath of the Lich King, you may well have seen this battle taking place, as it could be viewed in the underbelly through the grille immediately above. However, when you get up close, you realise that these character models and animations are from the Wrath of the Lich King era, and it's amazing how already they look really antiquated. It feels very much like you're observing combat on a private server. Even stranger is this "we just killed 2 people" dance the victorious team does. The next piece of exploration I'm going to mention is something I've already made a detailed video on. It is my exploration of the Demon Hunter starting zone and class order hall, the planet of Mardum. This is something I'm extremely proud of, as it is a rare example of a zone I managed to break out of before most of my gifted friends in the exploration community did, and it is a really beautiful and interesting zone full of mysteries. I'll link to the full video below. Now, one area I've always been curious about is the area directly behind the Ghostlands portal in Eastern Plaguelands. This is quite a difficult area to access, and strangely enough, I have never seen an exploration video covering what lies directly behind the portal. Aside from avoiding the portal itself, and avoiding being transported to the Ghostlands proper, you can't simply fly around it, as there are invisible walls everywhere. So I had to think outside the box on this one, and use a technique I developed myself, and it works quite well. Take a griffin through the portal into the Ghostlands. When the griffin goes through the portal, you'll get a load screen, and disconnect immediately using Alt plus F4. Then reconnect. Now, it is important that you disconnect the instant you log in the second time. If you don't, you'll just be ported to the Ghostlands as you might expect, The third and final time you log in, you should be dismounted from the griffin and fall down behind the portal. You now have total freedom of movement. You can now ride through the Eastern Kingdoms version of the Ghostlands, and you can see it is essentially quite similar, apart from the removal of all the Blood Elf architecture, banners and items. Without the backdrop of the Blood Elf architecture, these naked scourge banners, representing Deathholme, ominously warn of danger ahead. You can see that, as in the Ghostlands proper, the terrain changes from that of the Plaguelands to a greenish hue. For some reason you get dismounted at this point and the channel changes. If we go around this corner, you can see this large scourge construction, the only bit of Deathholme that made it into this version of the Ghostlands. Now if you turn around and head north, and then head west through the hills, you'll eventually come to the back of uninstanced Stratholme, with its untextured version of Naxxramas floating menacingly above. There are several different versions of the Maelstrom in-game, and if you want to know how to escape the Shaman class Alderhall version, I suggest you look at my Shaman guide from earlier this year. The version I'll be discussing in this video is the version that takes you to Deepholme from the breadcrumb quest Heroes Call Deepholme, and that will lead you on to the Maelstrom, and you are transported by portal to this rock where Thrall and Aggro reside. The rock has invisible walls all around it. I've only ever seen one method to get out of this area, a method using Heroic Leap, but it turns out it is very easy to explore the area using a very simple trick. Just jump on Aggro's Manticore and then disconnect. When you log back in, you'll be falling in the Maelstrom, so make sure you've taken a Goblin Glider or some means of arresting your fall. You'll notice that, despite appearances, the Maelstrom has absolutely no water physics at all. The Black Temple, the most iconic of instances. It contains one of the largest buildings in the game that doesn't resort to loading screens or other illusions to artificially increase its size. The Black Temple is relatively easy to break out of. First, work your way through the sewers and kill the first boss. And then head over to this point here. You'll want to jump up on the ledge in front of this grill, and there's an invisible wall in front of the grill. The way all classes can get past the invisible wall is by using the Dark Moon Seesaw to glitch through it. If you're doing this with a Demon Hunter, as I am here, you don't actually need to do this. You can just leap through it with Infernal Strike or Metamorphosis. Other classes have similar abilities such as Heroic Leap. You can then make your way up through the inside of the left-hand wall of the temple, allowing you to ultimately glitch under and outside of the instance. What you are looking at is actually the whole of the Black Temple in its entirety, but from this angle the textures don't project properly, so you can't see any of the NPCs or internal architecture. You can climb up these mountains and then fly straight to any point within the instance, including flying straight to Illidan. You can also fly to any individual raid boss within the instance to farm pets or transmog or whatever. The clip you're watching now was sent to me by a guy called Lankslad2009 some months ago, And it is one of the most amazing pieces of exploration I've ever seen, as it shows Langslad breaking out of the tomb of Sargeras and uncovering an entire forbidden continent. Definitely the largest forbidden zone I've ever seen in-game before. Langslad was keen for me to use this video, which is something people ask me to do all the time, and I generally refuse because I like to come up with my own plays, and it would be unethical for me to use other people's content. It is kind of exploitation. But because of the sheer scale of this exploration, on this occasion I thought it would be appropriate to show this short clip and give a link to the full video in the description below. The penultimate location we'll be talking about in this video is Stratholme, and Stratholme can be broken out of by hugging the wall here past the instance portal. If you keep to the wall, you won't get ported out. I learned this technique from the speedrunner Sheik Runner. If you climb over the mountains to the left, you can reach a point where you can look down, and as with Black Temple, what is in front of you is the entirety of Stratholme. And it's not just main gate Stratholme either, but also service entrance Stratholme. You see, these instances were originally one instance in vanilla and were only separated in Cataclysm. Though they are disconnected from each other, they still occupy the same instance. If you enter service entrance Stratholme, you can actually see through to Festival Lane through this grill here. Festival Lane being located in Main Gate Stratholme. It is actually possible to leap off the top of the mountains to the left of Stratholme straight to Baron Rivendare, the final boss of Service Entrance Stratholme. And in fact the speedrunner Sheik Runner has an amazing video where he does exactly that, and I'll link to that in the description below also. Note that Sheik Runner actually starts in Main Gate Stratholme. If you travel outside of the immediate area of Stratholme, you find these untextured, ghostly hills everywhere, and they are punctuated only by what appears to be markers. Returning to the top of the mountain again, if you jump off and glide down towards the left, you'll eventually land in Main Gate Stratholme. However, if you keep closer to the main gate, you'll eventually land underneath Service Gate Stratholme, which is quite high up in the air and can't be viewed from below. And there's a really interesting NPC that appears to fall down from the main body of Service Gate Stratholme the second you enter the zone. This NPC cannot be attacked. You get a constant out of range error message when you try to. He doesn't appear to be a placeholder. He seems to have been intended to be an actual dungeon NPC, but for some reason spawns underneath the instance. The final instance we are going to be looking at is Dire Maul. And in this one, I'm not going to be breaking out of Dire Maul. That's already been done by someone called Dat Guy Cry in a very clever piece of Demon Hunter escapology, which again I'll link to in the description below. I'm just going to be using Shaman Farsight to show how this dungeon, like Stratholme, is actually one dungeon that was essentially walled off into 3 separate parts during Cataclysm. Now this is actually quite valuable knowledge and useful information for gold farmers, and I'll be covering this in a subsequent video. But until then, have fun trying to figure out why that's the case. So, there's the video. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, why not subscribe? And if you really liked it, why not consider joining my super secret Patreon feed, where I upload game-breaking exploits on a regular basis. Thanks for watching. This has been Archfelder.